Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's presentation of OTF Connects, Teaching Financial Literacy with Jeff Balch of the Financial Consumer Association of Canada. Wait, it's agency, isn't it, Jeff?
It is agency.
Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Cliff, and Sirius Gurhan, who's the administrator and facilitator of the OTF Connects program, might pop in a little bit later to say hello and thank you personally for giving up some of your own time to expand your own learning. We do like to track where our teachers are from. And so if you want to try and grab at the little toolbar at the very left-hand side of your whiteboard, the very bottom icon is the clip art tool. Now, we have been having some issues with it, so when I click mine, it's just this little title strip, and there isn't actually any clip art I can click on. But if you are able to, otherwise you can just grab one of the pen tools, which is the third one from the top, and circle's a good idea. There, Jeff, and just draw a little spot on the map, approximately where you are joining us from. Jeff, your skill level's really going up here.
Oh, I know. Well, it would be if I could get this to work right.
I know this stuff's been a little tricky. Cliff, if you're having any trouble, don't worry about it. If the text tool is the fourth tool from the top, the capital letter A. And you'll see it pops out into two options where there's just a capital letter A and then there's a text box version. The capital letter by itself is a little easier to use. We're actually not all that far apart. And if you're having trouble, we don't have to spend forever on it. You can just type where you are in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not having much luck here.
Okay, don't worry about it then.
So you're at the Halton board.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys got a great board. You have financial literacy facilitators in your board, or is it the Catholic board? I can't remember which.
You know what? To be honest, I haven't been involved in the financial literacy aspect until 2013, so I really am not sure just what's available to me.
Okay. There's quite a bit available to you, actually, but we can talk a little bit about that as we go along.
Okay.
Alrighty. So I will advance over to here and take it away, Jeff.
Well, this one is called A Pace to Know. The reason it's titled that because that's the new slogan of the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, which is a non-profit federal government agency devoted to two things. One is consumer information and educational information, and secondly for being an advocate for consumers in terms of the banking industry. So just thought I'd let you know. I want to start us off with what is financial literacy, and to me the big thing about financial literacy is that what we want to do is engage students in that have the understanding to give them the skills to apply and understand. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily they're going to make proper decisions. It just means they have the ability to understand what's in front of them, to understand these decisions. So we often confuse making the right decision. We've all made poor decisions in our lives. I know I have, and probably the two of us would all also jump in and say, yeah, we've made mistakes and we learn from it. But we had the ability to understand and learn. And through, in a lot of cases, trial and error. The problem right nowadays is that mistakes are more costly than they were when a lot of us were growing up. So it is important that we give people that basic understanding of money and finances and how to use it properly. This one is kind of interesting. I was telling just two things I noticed, and particularly with Cliff, you'll probably like this too, doing what you're doing. Louise and I were talking earlier about the fact that a lot of young people are feeling the post-secondary pressure. Do I go? Do I not go? Should I go at all? And what we're seeing is two things. High youth unemployment rates. Ontario right now ranks only behind the Maritimes in young adults with unemployment rates. The city I'm from, London, has one of the highest unemployment rates in the province of Ontario, 20%. Toronto is about 18%. So that's one thing. Is there going to be a job for me when I'm done? The other thing that's a problem is the high cost of post-secondary. So I thought, well, why is that? So I went back and dug up. When I went to university, it was about approximately $1,000 for tuition. And when I applied that to today's dollars with inflation, it's approximately $2,700. So I jumped onto Western's website to see what is the current tuition for a Western first-year student. It was $7,100. So they're going to incur a lot more money just because tuition's gone up. I got over to my parents' house a couple months ago, and I was going through my things in Mom and Dad's house, and I dug up one of my old pay slips when I was in university. And I was making $9 an hour. And students right now are making only $10.25, $10.50. So I did some research on that, and actually, if minimum wage had kept pace with inflation, it should be around 15%, or $15, and it's not bad. So two things are working against them now. One, tuition has gone up faster than just simply the cost of living, and the wage rate hasn't increased even to come close to the cost of living. So these two things have added pressure to students to choose and to save, and where's the money going to come from? This is actually an older graph. They now estimate that's even higher than this. The average Canadian student is, yes, and the range of higher paying jobs has shrunk considerably. The average post-secondary student graduates with about $27,000, $28,000 worth of debt right now. Here's the problem though, as I say to students, average just means the midpoint. That means half the population is graduating higher. In fact, in the States, just to let you know, they're about double what our graduation rate is. And a lot of states it's getting close to, after 4 years of university, $100,000 in student debt. And as Louise has pointed out, there isn't those high-paying jobs to pay for the debt. And student debt, OSAP debt, unlike any other loan, you cannot get rid of it by declaring personal bankruptcy. So you're stuck with that debt no matter what. So they're stuck with high amounts of debts. The average is 7 to 10 years to pay it off. We were talking about this earlier. What that does is limit their choices for the future. Again, is it high cost of tuition? Yes. Is it the mismanagement of money? Often yes. We had our oldest daughter learn the hard way that just because you borrowed money didn't mean you could spend it on what you wanted. And she simply spent the money, then realized after the fact that someday she'd have to pay it back. And she spent it rather foolishly, she'd be the first to admit. So these are the issues, the problems we have to deal with. I thought this one was really interesting. 7 out of 10 Canadians are not fully confident that their math and money management skills will help them plan for a secure financial future. Now, what's troubling to me about this is one, they don't know if somebody is selling them something proper or not. So they have somebody come to their home who's trying to sell them up. It doesn't even have to be a financial advice. It could be anything. It could be a furnace. And am I getting the best deal for the best price? And they don't have the skills to either refute or understand what's being presented in front of them. Recently, we had two people come in to look at our furnace. And what was interesting was the financing charges for both. One was 12%, the other was 25%. And he had indicated that a lot of people, in fact, did the financing route. And I thought, wow, because at that rate, you're paying for that furnace almost double its value before you're actually done. This is another problem, is this whole problem of reality versus perception. I asked my students actually this year about money, and it was quite actually interesting. I said to them, how much do you think you spend on school supplies? They said $5. And I said, well, that's not quite right. In fact, I said it's closer to 200. I have a lot of students who talked about friends of theirs who've gone to get payday loan places. And we actually did the mathematics behind this in class just to show them. And this came up again today in class. You know, why do people do this? And I said, if you jump onto any of their websites and you look at it, and you'll see that for every $100 you borrow as a payday loan, they're going to take $21 back. And I said, what's that as interest rate? And the answer they gave me is 21%. And I said, well, that would be true if that was for the year, but you have to pay that money back in 2 weeks. So let's now figure it out because it's a 2-week payback. And they sat there shocked when it's 500, comes up to over 500% annual effective interest rate. And I said, do you want to know something even more? Jump onto their website. So they all went onto the website of various companies, and they said, it says it right here. And I said, I know. And yet people still go in. Payday loan places are growing exponentially in this country. They estimate about 2 billion Canadians actually use payday loan places. And the problem is once you get in, it's very hard to get out because of the fees and because of the, if you're late, you get charged interest on top of that. And actually, seriously, is the question. It happens a lot. And a lot of young people, when we actually talked and interviewed them about why do you use these places, and they said, well, quite frankly, because I don't have a bank account, which should not be a problem in this country, or they don't hold my check like the bank does. Now, the government is actually working on that right now because that is one of the big complaints from a bank is that they can hold a paycheck if they're not a long-time customer. So they're looking at that, but it gives them their money now. This whole sense of I'm entitled to have my money right away, or I'm entitled to things now and I don't have to wait. Yeah, and that's that delayed gratification. Everybody, the perception is, I want it now. And that's actually in an elementary school. It's too bad we don't have our elementary colleagues online. And one of the students, after we had done some talking, came up to me and said, I can't wait to get a credit card so I can buy whatever I want. And I stopped and I said, but you realize you have to pay that back. And the look on their face was, did not actually occur to them. It's this whole notion, we see it in ads. Actually, I was in Toronto and we saw this ad on the TV was for a diamond, get an engagement ring. It's okay to go into debt to buy this ring. I thought, oh my goodness. That was the whole thrust of this ad, is that we forget that we have to pay this back. And as I said earlier, what I found out is that realistically, it's this whole buy now, pay later, as all you're doing is borrowing from your future self. And it looks like we've got Cheyenne join the room. Cheyenne, do you have are you mic'd or not mic'd? We'll wait to see if she comes in a bit. I'll just continue on just a little bit here.
Sounds good, Jeff. Cheyenne, just let us know in the chat if you have any issues.
So welcome, Cheyenne. Cheyenne, do you have a microphone or are you just going to use the text chat window?
If you're not sure about that, you can just click your talk button, which is in the upper left corner in the audio video box. Nope, I'm just going to type, no problem.
No problem. So what I'm doing right now, Cheyenne, just to give you a very quick upcap, is talk about the rationale behind why I think it's really important that we're teaching financial literacy in schools. And we've gone through some of the problems that we've encountered. I didn't really talk a little bit in the past about, when I was talking about tuition, when I graduated school, and probably Cliff, you think back to when you did, or even Cheyenne when you did, we had debt, but we didn't have a lot of debt. The latest numbers now are, they're estimating that 70% of students will graduate post-secondary, not just university, post-secondary with debt, 70%. Incredibly high. And more are having to rely on alternative financing, like banks, student line of credits, and whatnot, to take up the debt load. So that's really quite a significant portion are incurring debt but not learning how to manage it. This is another really good one. This is a really interesting graph, and I got this from the federal government also. In what it says is this is our credit to debt, or income. Let me start over. This is our credit market debt to disposable income. In other words, for every dollar of income, this is how much dollar of debt. Now, some of that debt is consumer debt. Some of that debt is what we call good debt, so it could be for an investment or mortgage or whatever. But in 1990, and sad part about that is I've been teaching for quite a while, the average Canadian, for every dollar of income, they had about 85 cents in debt. So worst comes to worst, you can pay off your debts. And as I said, this was not just consumer debt. This also included mortgage and things like that. Today, for every dollar of income, we owe $1.64. And you don't have to be a financial planner to realize that as a country, we can't sustain the fact that we're incurring debt faster than we're generating income. And it is, you're right, Cliff, it's daunting. This is what's got everybody concerned. In fact, yes, it is yearly income to total debt. And what's got a lot of financial planners very concerned, and people in economic circles, is that we can't pat ourselves on the back that we didn't suffer the same fate as the Americans did when their housing market collapsed. But we're not actually, our debt load is actually now higher than theirs were when their market crashed in 2008. This is kind of my favorite one. Louise, we've talked about this before. This is the boomerang back. What we're finding is and I'm going to talk a little bit about why, about this later. We have the largest number of adult children staying at home since they've been keeping records. And this is putting a real strain on the family finances, a lot of times because the adult children are not financially sound, or they're not financially sustaining themselves and asking their parents to do that, which is putting their parents at financial risk. One of my favorite ones is the next one beneath it. I kind of combine two slides. As you know, if you watch the TV, you know that a lot of advertisers sit towards teens, and this is why. And I can't find any numbers for Canada, but I found this for 2012 for the States. There are roughly 25.6 million teens in the U.S. They spend $208 billion, but only make $91 billion. That means a little over $100 billion has to come from somebody else, and that somebody else is mom and dad's. And if we're wondering why as a society we're broke, this is why. So teens are spending at a rate of 2 to 1 of their income. So it is any wonder then, as they become older, that we're seeing this ratio appear the way it is. We're financing them as parents. It's becoming alarming, and I don't think the trend here is any less than it is down there. One of my favorite articles that came out a few years ago was in the Toronto Star. This one is just unbelievable. And this was 2011, so not much has changed in terms of money. But a lot of students really do feel they're entitled to, if they get a post-secondary education, a university degree or a college diploma, that they're entitled to money. And no matter how much we tell them as parents that we understand, honey, that you worked hard, but that's only the starting point. You're going to start at the bottom and work your way up. They really believe they're going to be at an upper end, and there's a real disconnect again between reality and perception. The average young adult coming out of university, by the way, it's averaging now about $35,000. So there's quite a bit of difference between the reality and perception. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada who's sponsoring this today, has done some research on this with other governments across the world, and really the most effective way to do this is to integrate it through all the curriculum. But this is a really hard thing to be doing. A lot of people would like to see a course that also take much like a careers or civics, or even in the elementary school where it's a static component. The problem is we don't actually think this way with money. And so we have to find ways in which to integrate it through all our curriculum, not just a curriculum with expectations. Most people have never seen this document. It's either one of you seen this document. It's a Ministry of Education document that came down. It's called A Sound Investment. Just out of curiosity. So Cliff, you have never seen it before or heard of it? Cheyenne, have you ever heard of it? Yes, you do have. You not only have an expectation document, you have a scope and sequence document. It tells you actually how you'll do it in each subject area. It is ministry mandated from grades 4 through 12. That's what this document says in front of you. And there's actually another document. Louise, did we send them the scope and sequence, or I think scope and sequence, right? If you can jump on just for a second.
The scope and sequence document, but in fact, we'll make sure that all those documents are on the resource page that this recording will be part of, and you get the link tomorrow. And
we need to link the elementary then for Cheyenne. So I think that's just the secondary one. Yeah. So there is a document out there that says this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how you're supposed to be doing it. And nobody seems to know about it, because it's really hard to do this without somebody actually saying, this is how you got to do it. So this is what we're here today for. And this is only two of you. And this is what the scope and sequence looks, by the way. And to be really honest and fair, I did a web seminar with a number of our superintendents. And one of the coordinators, when we were in the room, rushed to find it in the board office. Thames Valley Board is the fourth biggest board in Ontario, and they couldn't find a single copy in the board office. So it's one of those things that people kind of, I think it's there, but people just don't really know and understand it. Okay, so what do you got to do? Well, I've got one elementary, one secondary. So I'm going to talk first of the secondary for Cliff. So Cliff, essentially, I could distill this down to 3 basic concepts. We got to get through them by grade 12. The top one is you can't manage the dough unless you know the flow. You have to know the inflow and you have to know the outflow. You can take the slide, Cliff. By all means, you put this up there and steal it. What it means by that is I used to teach budgeting to my students. It doesn't really work well in high school, even when you give them other budgets to do with. What you're doing is you're teaching the concept of budgeting. The problem is a young adult, when they're in school, they don't know the inflow. It's not until you're working that you really know your inflow. The other reason and it just came to me this year, why my own children, who have seen this for years, and we had to budget for weddings, and they were pretty good with their wedding budgets because we knew the inflow and we knew the outflow. But their own personal budgets they couldn't do. And it didn't dawn on me until this year why, and that's because the bank of mom and dad was always available to them. So if they got into real trouble when they were in school and they were short of groceries, they just came home and loaded up. They knew that if they were short money for tuition, that I wasn't going to say, oh, it sucks to be you, and I guess you'll fail out. They knew I'd bail them out. So again, though, with the two of them being on their own, they're now learning to budget. They've already had those skills before, but they're putting those skills together. Now, part of budgeting, though, is you can't divorce the next 2 things from budgeting. Manage your money or it will manage you. I have made more mistakes with managing money than I can count. And we have learned the hard way how to manage our money. And I think a lot of us may say the same thing. And you can let the credit card company take you for interest, or the banks, or whatever. Or, as Cliff was talking about earlier, you can spend within your means. Dave Ramsey would say you can act your wage. We don't often act our wage. Often we act above our wage. And we want the stuff, we want it now. But in doing so, we don't manage our money properly. Well, if you don't manage your money, you really can't do your budget. So that's why these are in the same circle. The other thing, too, is the other concept we have to do is build wealth, not debt. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to teach investment to the kids. This comes in the concept of needs and wants. This comes in the concept of pay yourself first. This talks about building your savings up, building your emergency fund up, living on only what you can afford to. Now, personally, Sylvia and I, which is my wife, we use the jar system. So if there's no money in the jar and we want to go out, we don't go out. As simple as that. It's taken us a lot of years to get to that point. We found that for us, when we were saving for our goal, which was the budget, and we knew their inflow and outflow, we were managing our money to go back to that budget. We were looking to save, we were paying ourselves first, that we met our goals, and it wasn't too bad. But all those things do interrelate together. And so these are kind of the three concepts we have to do with students. And it's amazing how you can weave this in. And I have a grade 12 accounting class, and this comes up almost daily in my grade 12 accounting class. We were talking about receivables today. We were talking about notes receivables and signing promissory notes for accounting. And it just came into the question about credit cards and why do people do that, because we were talking about how much credit business has to pay and why they pay it, why do they want you to do credit. So there is an interest for the kids for this, but you have to know your audience pretty well. And some of the things, for example, Cheyenne, would I be doing a formal budget with grade 7s and 8s? I tried it, it didn't work. Would I do a plan though for them? For example, we're going to do a class trip. I would teach them how to do budget that way. In fact, for our co-op class, one of their budgeting exercises was, I'm glad you did. What did you, can I get stop for a second? What did you actually teach them about credit cards, if I can ask? If you can just type away. But anyways, I was just saying, for our co-op class, I said, we're going to restart doing our employer thank you banquet. The budget is $400. Figure out how much it's going to be. And they came out with a budget that was pretty close. That type of activity works well because you know the inflow and you'll know the outflow, and you can teach the concept fairly well. It's a lot harder to do when it's just personal. So I'll just, yes. Well, that's interesting. We can talk about that now, since you kind of brought this up. What a lot of people don't understand, too, with credit cards, and in fact, most loans, not just credit cards, but most unsecured loans, the way it works is if you took out $500 and you paid back $400, the interest accrues back to the $500, not to the remaining balance. And so they're looking at you kind of shocked. And I said, well, in the next month you put another $500 down and you only pay out $50 because that's the minimum. You're still paying off the interest on that first $500. Now you're paying interest on the second $500. And they do get shocked by this. It's absolutely shocking. A typical $1,000 student credit card at 19%, if you were to pay the minimum, takes about 10 years to pay off. Truly amazing. And that goes back to manage your money or manage you. So does the credit card company want you to pay on time? Yes. Do they want you to pay minimum? Yes. Because that way that's what's going to make them rich. The fine print is huge. Cliff, Cheyenne, you're absolutely right. The thing about too in Ontario is once you're 18, you can apply for a credit card. So, because you're considered an adult. And the interest rates change quite considerably, and it's interesting reading the fine print. What you may want to compare, one more thing, is if they miss 2 consecutive payments, does the rate change? Because a lot of them will change from 9, for example, or 19 to 26. Once it goes to 26, they do not have to lower it again. Yeah, I had a daughter too. My son, Louise has written, my son was terrified to do that. And my daughter, too, was terrified to keep a balance. In fact, we'd once peeked into her bill, and she had a negative balance on her card because she was paying off her card every 2 weeks, every payday, which is not a bad thing to do. So she was making her money work for her instead of the other way around. Okay, so there are a lot of barriers to this, even in the school I'm at. In secondary, the barrier is, well, if it's not an expectation, I don't have time, I don't have confidence. A lot of people don't like to do something that they can't either assess or evaluate. How do I keep my kids engaged? Where can I find resources that are not biased, that are not trying to sell something to the students? Any others you guys have found what's sort of holding people back? Louise and I were talking earlier about time, and I said it's interesting that we always find time to teach the things we want to teach. At least I do. I will speak for myself only. So those topics that I really like, I really do well. Those topics I don't really like, ooh, skip those or do them really quick. Yeah, it's interesting. They don't take it seriously. They're the ones that have huge mortgages, and I often think, boy, I remember a mortgage rate of, one of our mortgage rates at 15%. Most of them couldn't sustain if the mortgage rate went up 2% more than it is now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the resources FCAC has for you and that you can use, and sort of recommendations how you can use it. And Cheyenne, you said you're a 7-8 teacher, so this actually will work for that age group also. It just depends on how much time you've got. In a second, I'm going to take you to the website, but before you guys leave, if you would like to receive this as a binder, just email me your information. Louise will put my email up at the end. Just your name and your address, and I will make sure they send you a binder. Now, this particular resource is both, can be done as in-class learning, self-learning, or web-based learning. And I've had a young teacher this year who's never taught the grade 10 business course before and is teaching the financial literacy now, and said, okay, I'll just do the web-based version. And is learning, you just can't give them the web-based, you still have to teach it. But he was amazed at how much they picked up just doing the web version themselves. There are a number of different topics to choose from. You don't have to choose them all. You can choose as little as one. In grade 9, I did a lifestyle reality check with my students. Just, what do you think you're going to, what kind of life do you see yourself? And how much money is it going to take to get there? But there's also a number of other topics: needs, wants, budgeting, banking, credit and debt, insurance, investing, and fraud. Now this particular website, let's see if it'll work. Looks like this. You register here as a teacher, students register here. And when you do it, when you register as a teacher, your password is saved forever. Theirs is only saved for a year. So let me just jump on here. Oops.
Jeff, if you're going to go to a spot where you're going to log into yours, then that we won't be able to see past that.
Okay.
Unless you switch to application sharing. If you want to do that, you can switch to application sharing and do the
let's do that. Yeah. Can you see it now?
It's coming slowly, I think. A lot of black space right now. Is that what you guys see? Yeah, about 10%. It looks like it's stuck, Jeff.
Okay. So you're not seeing anything right now?
Nope. Not really. Just a very top little tiny strip. You could try switching back out and then going back in again.
Okay.
Still not doing anything, so that idea might not work.
Yeah, I think I've... Okay.
Do you want to take a couple minutes and have people set up an account?
Might be the best thing to do. I'm just wondering what happens when I actually do this.
Well, if you log in and follow all the same steps as if that's what you mean, and then have them follow them, then your description would be fine. Now, Jeff, you've switched back to WebTour and nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening in WebTour?
Yes. Did you put the link back in?
Yes. Are you guys seeing this or not?
No. Oh, wait, there it is. It's in. Okay, perfect. Cheyenne, you can see it too?
So I've just loaded mine up. And I will sort of suggest you go out in a second. But I just wanted to show you this, and then we can come back to it. So this is the online presence. There's a couple things here. There's a self-directed tour if you want to take it. Two teachers, one from Saskatchewan and myself, are discussing actually how we use this in our classroom. This has been around for a while, this material. And I'm just going to go down to teaching materials here. So everything in the binder is online. Everything online is in the binder. The online is actually more up to date than the binder just because of printing costs. And here you have all your resources, both PDF and HTML. So what the HTML version is so that if you clicked on that, let me click on something that's got something right there, and you wanted to create your own lesson plans, you could do that. I'll just go to one that actually has a better lesson plan. Everyone you'll see is set up, overview, what's curriculum area, what do you need, how long it's going to take. And by the way, notice that this says 60 minutes. If you do things online and particularly with the students either doing it themselves as a flipped classroom, or whether you do it together with your students, or talk about it and go home and do it, or talk about it and do it in class, the online portions take half of the time that it would be just strictly teacher-led. But here you have a suggested approach to doing this. What works really well, what we've had a lot of success doing, is having the students do this as a flipped classroom. So go ahead, try this on your own. They'll run through it, a lot of them will run through it very quickly. And so what you do is at the end you pull it back and you do some sort of, whether it's through talking, whether it's through some sort of evaluation and assessment. And there are some assessment tools even built into this. I'll just scroll down. And you can see here as I'm doing this. And this is a HTML version. I think, Louise, are you seeing Handout at all on your screen or not?
No, if you're scrolling down, then we have to manually scroll down ourselves.
Okay.
So the top of the page we see is needs, wants, and priorities.
Okay, awesome. So if you guys scroll down, and so you can actually see what the page looks like. This loads a little faster than the PDF version. That's the reason we're into it. This gives you your suggested teaching approach. And all of them are set up this way. How do you test that they've got it? And there are some handouts you can give them. Extension activities, instead of calling it a differentiated instruction or instructional intelligence, this is what we came up with too many years ago. But I would like you to scroll down to where it says Needs, Wants, and Priorities, Story 4.1. And I don't think we showed them how to do thumbs up, did we?
Goodness.
So when you scroll...
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you scroll down there, just give me a little smiley face or approval icon. You'll find that on your... What toolbar is that called?
That is just the participants box, so right under your name you've got the little smiley face, or you could do the check mark, Jeff, with a green check or red X. Look at those smiley faces.
So you can see I'm changing. Yeah, so smiley. When you get down there to the story. And I think, Cheyenne, this is actually works really well. We've done this a couple of our, where we're trying, I shouldn't say we're trying. I'm meeting with my elementary colleagues who are teaching me a lot about teaching, to be honest with you. But each module has a story. Now, the students could do it online, or you could take that, they can have them go through it, and then they come back to class. And I actually have my kids act this out. I just give them the story with it highlighted for their parts. They just read it, and we kind of ham it up in the class. But it's a really good story starter. It's a really good discussion starter. And I got this idea from our drama teacher, and I thought, well, they should be the only one having fun acting. I mean, I like to tell stories, and I like to act in my class, and I got that student in my class that doesn't seem to sit still and wants to answer everything, and so this is a good way for them to do it. And I've never had students, I just ask for volunteers, and I've had guys read girls' parts, girls read guy part. We make no distinction there. It's just characters, and they get used to that. So there are 8 characters in these stories. They're all different ages. They start at 18 and work their way up, and because each of them has different problems at different life stages, which is kind of reality. And even with grade 7 and 8, they kind of get the story. As you're scanning down, I think you can read this. You got Luna, who's the 18-year-old, and Nikos, who's studying in school. And Luna finds that she has no money. We've never been in that situation where we've all spent our paychecks, the first one we've got, and had nothing left. I know we've never all been there. And then this jumps into, when we look at the stuff we got, and we all buy stuff, do we really need it? Is it a real need or want? Most kids will talk about needs and wants, but when it comes down to it, we really want. We don't really distinguish between the two. And what's a need and want for mine is not necessarily a need and want for somebody else. And I do bring that out. It's a matter of what's priority in your life. And I really teach this or that when I do this unit. You can have this or you can have that. And I often do. I've got cards created. If you want me to send these to you, I can. We would sit in class after talking about this, and I'd give them these little, "Hi, sir, how are you doing? Did you want to jump on and say hello?"
Sure. Sorry I'm so late, but I was in another meeting. It's good to see that the conversation's going on here, and I'll just sit quietly as you continue your amazing work. Thank you, Jeff.
No problem. And what I've done at this stage is we've done the story, and we talked through it, and then usually at the end of class, I give them out these little cards. And some of you will remember would you rather cards, and I've done the same thing with financial literacy. And this is part of changing the thought process. So would you rather cards are like, would you rather only doing one watch a sunrise or a sunset? It tells a lot about personality of people when you ask these questions. But I kind of said, oh, I could do these with financial literacy. So I gave them this question. Now I'll pose it to you. Would you rather, and you have to only do one of these two, have tickets to your favorite sports team, or buy a new computer? Just type it in the box. And I'll tell you why I said this in a second. Computer. Cliff's thinking. There's somebody that's changing. My youngest daughter decided that she's going to treat her fiance to a Leafs game, and then bought the tickets, and then complained a week later that her computer was terrible, and I pointed to the tickets that she had purchased on the screen, and I said, "There's your computer." And she looked at me and she says, "You're right," because life is really about this or that. It's not about this and this or that or that. We make choices. And part of that is getting to understand the choices that we make. But 3 of you said computers, 1 of you said, I don't know. Because it depends on where you are in life. I asked this question of adults, would you rather age from the neck up or the neck down? And a lot of people had some difficulty with that one too. One of my favorite ones I've asked a group of teachers is, particularly older, my age group who are in the 50s. Would you rather have your body that you were when you're 21 but the income to match, or your current income but your current physical needs? And a lot of them scratch their heads and go, I don't know, I like where we are right now, we're financially secure, but man, the aches and pains are getting there. So part of the thing with needs and wants is getting them to understand that. And this is a great way to do it. It's a story starter. It works really well. I do it in a lot of my classes, even classes that don't have expectations for this. It's just something fun to do in the class. And I found that learning often takes place in spite of me. So I just need to go back up and get out here. So each of the modules is set up this way, and if you were to log in, I'm hoping this is going to work. No, it's not going to work. Where it says View Online Module, you would see what the kids are seeing. One thing I want to show you next is where it says Manage Your Classes. Now, I'm just going to show you this because this is kind of interesting. This is my grade 9 class, and all I asked them to do was needs, wants, and priorities. Except one particular young boy decided he wanted to learn a little more, and I'm not going to say no to a student that wants to learn more. But you can set up a class, and probably not the best one to show you. You can see I've got a few classes here.
So what, Jeff? We're still on the Welcome to the City page.
Okay, we'll just see if it comes in. I might just jump ahead just to see if one will just load for us or not.
Sure.
Because it looks like it's being a little delay in our login process. No, it's not going to load anyways. At any rate, you can actually manage your classes and view what they're viewing. If we had the capabilities and I could show you, I could see actually what they've done. And by the way, I will send you those. If you send me the emails, I'll send you some other games and activities you can do with your classes. And one of the nice things about that is when I look at that, and I had the students go through this, and at the end there is a summary slide, and I ask my students, tell me 3 things you learned about this. Now, before I do that, I actually tell them what it should look like. So, because if you don't, you know the answers you're going to get. I did do this the first year, and I had one student that said nothing. Well, he did answer my question, but not the way I anticipated. So now I give them an example of what it should look like. And that frames how much I'm going to teach the next day. So if they get needs and wants and priorities, then I'm not going to formally teach it. I may show a clip from Princess. Some of you may have seen that TV show, because that's a great way to show needs, wants, and priorities. And then we move on. I don't like teaching things that they already know. There's not much sense. Yeah, I use that. It's a great show, and it's suitable, I think, even for the 7s and 8s if you just take some clips of it, because it really does show what people think they're entitled to. And they don't make priorities, and they don't know the difference, and they spend all their income on their wants. Okay, we're going to get out of here and try to go back. Maybe. Nope, there we go. Are we back, Louise?
Yep, we're back.
Okay. So the online resource I just showed you, it does parallel what is in the book. I like it better because for a couple different reasons. One, I encourage them to go home and do this with their parents. It's probably the only time they're going to dialogue with their parents about money anyways. Number 2, you've got students in the class that read at different levels, different speeds. This is truly differentiation when you can get them to do this. You know, trying to keep an entire class together in these things is really quite difficult. You've got students that will race ahead, those that need extra help, and I can help them then. So those that don't need the help can move ahead, and often I say, well, pick a module that's of interest to you that we're not going to cover. So a lot of the boys will go on the insurance module. Now, mind you, I deal with older students than what Cheyenne would deal with. Just learn about insurance and car insurance and household insurance and things like that. More on investing than I would do in a typical class. And again, it's never a bad thing when they're moving ahead on their own. It's quite amazing how much they learn when we kind of step to the side and just guide them. Another one that is available to you is called Financial Basics Workshop. Cliff, this one actually might not be bad if you've got a large enough number. This one covers a lot the same material. You can order the workbooks. If not, you can get the PDF files and create your own. You got 20 kids. This would actually work really well if you're short of time. And I use this in senior classes where we don't really have expectations for financial literacy, and we really don't want to spend much more than 3 periods. So it covers a lot of things in 3 periods. It's a little shorter, very much so teacher-led, but it does have some really great videos and activities for them to do. And of course, you also do like I do. You take a little bit from the city, you take a little bit from financial basics, and you kind of mesh them together. This one is really teacher-led. There's no other way around it. It does have a PowerPoint that comes with it, a suggested teaching approach like the last one did, but it's much more of us standing in front of the students and talking. So depending on your age group, I've had some success with some classes, less success with others. It is a lot of talking, so that's the only problem. But if it's interspaced and cut down, it's actually quite an effective tool. The other advantage is that you can create a workbook for them on this, and they actually have a takeaway workbook. Now, if you order the workbooks ahead of time, and I mean ahead of time, it has to be, unfortunately right now it has to be months because they've run out of supplies of this. They can ship you the supplies. You just call them up on their website, and I will go to the website to show you. They will send the books to you free of charge. Everything, by the way, here is free of charge. I should point that out. So the advantage to this one is that you do get all this material sent to you. And again, I think we'll just set up a Dropbox for you folks. So if you want to, I'll send you an invite out, and you can go to the Dropbox and pick up as much or little as you want. And I have their permission to do this for you. And you can order all this material too, just as easily as we're doing now. Just I'm going to make it just available to you a little faster. So the green book is the presenters. The orange book is participants. If you want to order them, you do have to order ahead of time. That's the only thing. A lot of my students like the hard copy. The last one is combination. Now, this next one is probably better suited for if you do anything with your parents' council, with your colleagues. It's more comprehensive. But on the other hand, as I point out to this young teacher that I work with, there are a lot of really good videos here, and I will show you this in a minute. And again, you may just decide that you want to do the video. Now, I was talking earlier about mindset, and I have 2 teachers in my department that are not business teachers. One's a phys ed teacher, and one is a history teacher. And because of declining enrollment, they are teaching business classes for the first time. Our departmental policy has been we will incorporate financial literacy into all things we teach, and they were quite dubious of that. So I gave them a copy of the DVD that comes with the financial toolkit and said, look, all I want you to do is once a week play one of the videos. If your classes don't discuss, fine. If they do discuss it, go with the flow. You probably know more than you think. And they come back to me and said, where can I get more stuff? Because, you know, it's like a lot of things. If it's short and engaging, they'll stick to it. It comes with a lot of material. There's a lot of PowerPoints, and as I said, what I'm finding what teachers are doing is they're taking a little bit from the city, a little bit from financial basics, and a little bit from Toolkit and making it their own, which is what we do as good teachers. We take from all resources to make it and adapt it to our classes. But this one is a lot more comprehensive, and it contains things like pensions, income tax that is not really found. So for Cliff, for your group, income tax actually may be a good thing to do. And by the way, if you contact Canada Revenue Agency, you can actually get U-File this sent to your school. So that's just something just to keep in the back of your head. And they'll send you a working copy of income tax. And even we've used this even in elementary schools, because it's just, when you do simple income tax, it is a good math exercise, because you're doing that numeracy part, you're doing the counting part, and you know the computer is generating the numbers, you're still making them think. Topics covered, as you can see. So I've actually put some of these modules around our school, particularly the last 2 on pensions and retirement planning. It's interesting when you teach retirement planning to high school students and university students, and they're going, I don't have a job yet. But the big difference is if you start retirement planning when you're in your 20s, that you really don't need to put a lot of money away. At 35, you need a lot more. And roughly speaking, the estimate is you need 70% of your current income to retire on. That's kind of what we look at. That's why our pension, by the way, is 70%. The other 30% eventually gets topped up with CPP and old age security. We need to teach retirement planning before they actually get going, because if they start putting money aside, if they start paying themselves first, if they start thinking about the future, then they're not going to borrow from the future, and they're not going to have to work until they're 85. They can retire at 55 to 65. These are things that have worked in my class, and often I just pick these out and we just talk about them. We act out, as you saw from the city. We do watch short videos. We do some activities and games, which I'll just put up for you. And we've done a lot of, for use in our grades. We have an elementary school right next to us, and so my students have created storybooks for the elementary feeder school. So this actually would work for you, Cheyenne, even for doing this because financial literacy is supposed to be starting in grade 4. And just simple storybooks for them. My students have learned more from creating the storybooks than they've probably learned from my actual instruction. So this is what I would give, and this is a story for income, as we saw earlier. And I would highlight the parts for them. I usually read to start off, I read the sort of the announcer part. And they read the parts that I highlight for them. And I will make sure when I talk, we just ham it up really, really a lot. So for example, at the top of the slide says, Gaia shook her head. And often the students won't shake their head. And I say, Gaia, you're not shaking your head. And so then they get the hang of it. Or Rio waved a hand. Rio, you're not waving your hand here. And so they start doing this, and then we get a nice chance to discuss this. And it works very well. And again, this is all you really need to do if you don't have a lot of time. And we all have time in our class. I mean, I find with 75 minutes, and you have less, Cheyenne, but in high school we have about 75 minutes in class. It's a long time. And oftentimes there's time wasted at the end because they're restless and we need something else to do. 40 minutes would actually be perfect. That's what I started teaching on, by the way. I had 6 classes we taught in 40-minute increments. One of the big things I want you to take back to your schools is the big misconception is financial literacy requires you to do formal lessons. You can't. Some courses have to. That's part of their expectation. But our role is really just to initiate, to prime, to have students thinking. In fact, that's our role as teachers. And regardless of the course, we need to start championing this throughout all our courses. And Louise and I were talking about this. And actually, Louise, I'm going to have you, if you don't mind, relating the story you relayed to me earlier about the spreadsheets.
No problem. I was telling Jeff about my niece who's in grade 9, and she has a business class right now. And the teacher was giving them an opportunity to learn how to use spreadsheets. And so she gave them the following task. She said, pretend you have $1 million and you can spend it however you like, but for every item you spend, I want you to list it. And so in the spreadsheet, so they were just making a spreadsheet of all the things that they bought and how much they spent, and they were trying to get it to total $1 million. And the kids, there wasn't any other criteria or requirements in terms of needs versus wants, for instance, or anything like that. So kids were buying, really expensive cars. One kid bought a Dolphin, and they weren't even necessarily having to back it up with any realistic pricing or anything like that. Although my niece did, she went online and looked for things, but it just seemed like a huge missed opportunity for teaching them spreadsheets, but also teaching them some basic financial literacy things as well.
So it really comes down to a mindset. As we start thinking about ways to do financial literacy, and you two have already done it. You two have already talked about credit cards with your classes. You know these discussions come up. But the more we think about how we can incorporate, That's going to turn into actions. Actions become results. Results become belief, and we start thinking more and more. The reason it's not being done is because it's simply not thought about. And most people have the capability to do this in the schools. It's just a matter of thinking, how can I take what I'm currently doing and put a financial twist to it? I find that most in anything, and I taught math for years and years and years, and one of the big problems with students taking math, particularly in secondary, is they feel that, when am I ever going to use this? As soon as I introduce a concept with money, there's a direct connect. It's thoughts to actions, actions to results, results to belief, and that has to be the mindset we have to deal with. I want to just jump off just to show you the website and some of the things I was talking about. At least I hope it's going to work. Okay. And by the way, I just want to thank you both for being here. I don't know if you're aware, this is Financial Literacy Month. And there, it should come in right now, right? We got a thumbs up that came in or not? Or is it just coming in?
Nope, it's all good.
You're good? Oh, Cliff, I cut out. I just said welcome to Financial Consumer Agency Canada website, and welcome to Financial Literacy Month. So November is traditionally Financial Literacy Month across the country, not just in Ontario, but across the country. And this is Financial Consumer Agency Canada, by the way, does partner with the Investors Education Fund, who is the provincial arm of the Ontario Securities Exchange. Great people, and they've got a great website also. I'm not sure if that presentation came before, it's coming after me, but if you get a chance to hear from them, I'd hardly suggest you jump on and see what they're doing. They've got some really cool stuff. They do have a Twitter page, as you can see to the side there. I tried Twitter in my classroom, but it really didn't work too well. Not seeing anything at all. Cheyenne, are you seeing it or not?
It's the home page. I see the home. You're seeing white space. Yes, it's a moving image header. Okay, Cliff, we're just going to publish that URL into the chat, so maybe you can open that up in another browser.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can't jump out here. Okay, I'm hoping you can see this now. This is a static page. On the website, there is, under the financial literacy, there's an educational program. You'll see the 3 programs: the City, Financial Basics, and Toolkit. Financial Basics, a little different than has been done in the past. In that now you would have to just, used to be able to sign up online, but now due to the way the government's changing, you actually have to click on contact. You just call them up in French or English. And by the way, both are available in both languages. Not sure if either one of you are from a Francophone school. But you can get them in both. The other is the Financial Toolkit. And I'm hoping this will at least load so you can see it. And you can get, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see something called Trainer's Toolkit and Training Material, and this contains all the PowerPoint slides that you would need. But in each of these instances, there is a video that goes with the toolkit. For most of the toolkits, there's 2 or 3 videos, and you can either play them from, and hopefully you're seeing this to the right of your screen. This is an example of an introductory one. But you can play the video, or you can download the video. Just makes an MP4 file. And again, in both languages. If you want to do French for your students, just to freak them out, you can play it in French. just having real problems trying to get this to work. So we're going to go back here. So I put a page up that just goes through some more of the details of how I teach it, how I use it. My email address is there. Where a little earlier, there's only 2. And if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask how things are used, how we can use it, how things can be done. If you do want some of the binders, please email me, and I will, because I just need your information to email FCAC so they can send the material to you. I will put, and if you also send it to me, I will put up a Dropbox link so you can access some of the other things I was talking about. Some of the games and activities that I think will be appropriate for you, Cheyenne, and then some of the other material you can use to mix and match for your classroom. To be honest with you, in an hour and a half, all I can do is put the presentation, the meal in front of you. Unfortunately, I wish I could show you more, but well, be neither on site. But we are, for the elementary, we are doing some cross-panel things now. So Cheyenne and I will keep you informed of how it's going and how this project is going with Thames Valley. And for Cliff, they will send me out to secondary schools to do things in detail as long as there's 10 teachers that I can talk to. So I actually will bring out binders and materials for me. And I have to go to Halton Board, by the way. Been there a number of times. So if you have a wellness presentation you want to talk about with staff, and I've done that one too, because financial literacy is, a lot of it's on wellness. The number one stressor for students is money. Number one stressor among most adults is money. I think back to your fights you have with your significant other, your spouse, or even your parents. Usually it was money, and that's the reason we want to give people be able to make an informed decision. Doesn't mean right, but it does mean informed. So if you have questions, please ask now. We are a little earlier, but I don't think you'll mind that tonight. And I'll just monitor the chat room and just try to keep going. This is something that has been near and dear to my heart for a lot of years. Yes, you'll have access to everything. The animated clips, I just didn't play them this time. I will send you the links for the videos and whatnot. The animated clips were just the videos. And 2 good video sets. IEF has a really good video set by James Cunningham. It's called Funny Money. He will come out to secondary schools. I don't have your emails yet because I need your permission for that.
Jeff, as we were progressing through the session tonight, I was looking at some of the resources like the scope and sequence and whatnot, and I also came across a link for a form page that you had created at one point so that people could contact you with their email, and I wasn't sure whether or not that was still something that, that people could use.
Yeah, Cheyenne, yes you can. I can just grab it if you put it in the chat window. I don't know, Louise, do we want it in the chat window? That's not...
Actually, yeah. Cheyenne, what I'll do is when I send the follow-up email tomorrow, that'll give you the link to the web page that's especially for this presentation. There'll be the link for the archived recording, as well as all the web resources that Jeff has mentioned tonight. There's a link and a list in there. And of course, once you go into the FCAC website in those various areas that we link, then there's a ton of other stuff once you're there. But that email, I will give you Jeff's email again there, and then you can email him directly, and then he'll have your contact information.
Yep.
And that just keeps your privacy secure.
Yes. So we do want to honor that. But I do want to establish a network too. We're doing more and more with our elementary colleagues, particularly senior elementary. It's been the one area that in Thames Valley, I cannot speak for your school board, that's been neglected. And so we are doing some cross-panel work, and they're teaching me how to teach the 7s and 8s, and quite frankly, I don't know how you do it. to be honest with you, but they're timid in grade 9, and grade 7 and 8. I just kept thinking, man, I'm glad I'm not teaching 7 and 8. But there's a lot of good resources, and the other thing too is just for the email, just in case you're saying this didn't work, rather than just abandoning it, maybe contacting me and I'll give you, because I've run through this for a number of years now. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just need a little bit of tweaking for it to work properly. And as I said, I had a young gentleman in my department who is primarily a computer science teacher who's doing this for the first time, and then self-admitted that, and he did the online study stuff because he's comfortable with the computer work. And then he came back and he said, you know, I'm going to do a little bit of teaching with this now, and that seems to get a little bit better. And today he said, you know, the more I get into this, the more I already knew. And I said, well, I knew that, but you have to discover that for yourself. And he's getting very excited about teaching this now, to the point where I've had to say, well, you do have other curriculum you have to teach, so don't spend all your time on this. But the material is there. The one thing I've always liked about this and material from other resources, it's non-biased, it's vetted by the federal government, so we know that somebody else has been looking at this, and we know it's true, and it's not going to be selling anything to anybody. It's just unbiased information. So I will, if you send me your email and you do want binders, because I have to send your mailing addresses to FCAC, they will mail you the binders to your schools. And then I will send you links to a Dropbox so you can pick up some games and activities that are just mine. It's just my way of saying thank you for coming out tonight.
Awesome stuff, Jeff. What I'm going to do right now, just briefly, is I'm going to flip you over to the resource page of the OTF website in the, oops, that's not it. Let me try that again. Here we go. Just so that you can see what I'm talking about here. Now there is a big chunk up there that's the accessibility area. So that is the new OTF website. And if you scroll down on this resource page, you'll see the titles of all the many, many sessions that OTF Connects has held. And as you go down, you're going to see, it's a little bit easier sometimes to follow on the right with the presenter's name, but you'll see Jeff's name down there a fair bit with FCAC. So any of those sessions are previous sessions that Jeff has presented for us, and you can click on there and view those recordings, and there will be some variation in what is there as well as what's discussed in some different resources that you can still find through all the other pathways that we'll share from tonight's session. But you'll also see, especially for you, Cheyenne, Jeff mentioned IEF, which is the Investor Education Fund, who also do financial literacy sessions for us, and those sessions we have with them focus more at the elementary level, and so you'll see those resources in there as well. Wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to pop us back over here and move to our last slide there. And right here in the middle of the screen, you can actually click on that link. That is our feedback form from tonight. And if you do take a minute and let us know what you thought and any other ideas that you have for future sessions, please do fill that out. It only takes a moment or two. And then the second link lower down is our calendar. So you can go back to that and sign up for other related sessions we have next week. include, let me just flip to the calendar and I can tell you we've got inquiry across the curriculum on Tuesday. And then we've got criteria for judgment, which is a critical thinking session on Wednesday. And then we've got a liven up literacy session on Thursday. And the following week after that, we've got some stuff on global dignity and sharing classroom ideas for BYOD. If that happens to be happening in your school, you might have some fun there. And then our last session before we break for the holidays is fostering critical thinking in elementary math. So you might actually find some good connections in there as well, Cheyenne. Thank you both so much. I'm going to let Syria pop on now, and we hope to see you guys again soon.
Thank you so much, Louise, for all that you do to keep this program going. And Jeff, thanks again for sharing all your knowledge and expertise. It's so obvious how passionate you are about financial literacy, and you bring so much and share so many ideas with us. And of course, thank you for all the free, very useful SCAC resources available to teachers. Cheyenne and Cliff, thank you for giving of your time tonight to join us. I hope it was a good evening and you go away with lots of great resources to share with your students. Do fill in the survey. Your feedback really is important to us as we fine-tune the program as we move on organizing the winter-spring program. And do check out the sessions that Louise suggested for the next 2 weeks. There's lots of great ideas there, and then look to the new program that will be coming out for the new year. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you and good night. And especially the BYOD for secondary teachers is going to be really important in the future. I don't know if you use this, Cliff, but I use Remind 101. It's a one-way SMS messaging service to my students and parents. So it doesn't go through my phone number at all. They just comes out a message that says, Mr. Balch says, don't forget, exercise 10 is due tomorrow or whatever. It's a really cool tool to use. If you just Google Remind 101, you'll see it. So students just hook up on their cell phone and just sends them a reminder message when things are due. So those are the things that you would do in that session. Remind 101. It's all one word. Yep, you got it. If you just Google that, you'll find it. My students subscribe to that more than they did Twitter. So they just like the fact that it's a free messaging service, and they just pops up on their phones. Like, for example, I just scheduled it Sunday night. They had a test due Monday, remind you of a test due Monday, and they thought that was great. I don't know if they will do that, but there's a lot of things like that. You may be using Desire to Learn in your school, which is an LMS system. We're very big on that on the board. These are things you can learn about when you take these sessions, and that's really good to learn, particularly for high school, though it's actually just as simple for elementary. So I don't know if Cheyenne's popped off or not, but Cheyenne, Remind 101 works, but it just depends on your kids if they have personal cell phones or not. It doesn't cost them anything, and they can't text back to you even if they wanted to. So it's just a one-way, secured way to do it. Anyways, just a thought. I always like to leave a thought. And by the way, as Elise said, I'm actually a classroom teacher. I am not. I work with these people, but I'm not employed by them. I do their stuff because it works. As simple as that. Thank you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. And as I said, I will send you a link for some of my stuff just as my way of saying thanks for coming out, because I do appreciate it.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you.